We're at Hatch Pitch. We're from Houston, and we're bringing talent from around the world to Capital Factory in Austin. So this is the center of gravity for entrepreneurship in Austin, and we make this annual pilgrimage thanks to South by Southwest, and many of you are here for that. But we've been doing Hatch Pitch for 7 years, and this is our little show. And what I do want to do is pass it on immediately to our friend Joseph Kopser here. He has been one of our first winners in 2012, and he's gone on to grow and sell his company, and he's going to tell us a bit about it. He's got an awesome story to tell. Joseph, thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me. All right, well, good morning. So my name is Joseph Kopser. I wanted to make sure that with the time that I have, and I'm going to be very quick because you all want to hear from the entrepreneurs, not me, to understand that what Hatch Pitch is all about is what so much of what South by is all about, which is to make sure that entrepreneurs have the ecosystem and meet the community that's going to help them see their dreams through. And as far as what an entrepreneur is, I tell everyone an entrepreneur is someone who fixes a problem before they wait for anyone else to fix it for them. So if you reverse the clock 6-8 years ago, this is before Uber and Lyft were popular and anybody ever heard of them, I was just trying to get to and from work every day. And I was developing an algorithm to maximize my own commute. And then my co-founder, Craig Cummings, said, hey, that actually sounds like an idea we can turn into a company. And I said, what the heck do I know about building a company? I was still in the Army at the time. And he said, no, we're in Austin, Texas. And there is such an ecosystem that I reached out to that ecosystem to start to figure out how it is you build a company. What are the needs? What are the words? What are the terms and the vocabulary? And before long, in that first 6 months when we got serious, we heard about Hatch Pitch. We applied in 2011 and got to pitch in the 2012 Hatch Pitch. We actually technically came in second place, which is why I want to emphasize that regardless if you're being judged or you're being ranked, just continue to push as long as you have two of the 3 C's, cash, customers, or commitment. If you can keep the cash on hand, that's great. If you can keep the commitment, great. If you don't have the customers yet, you can build and pivot till you get there. If you have the cash and the customers, that's even better. But if you lack the commitment, that's the toughest part of those 3 C's to have. So for you all here, whether you're a company yourself, judges, or perhaps as a part of another ecosystem of investors, you're a part of the solution. And so while we have people that complain about this or that or issues in their life, it's entrepreneurs who step forward. And so my favorite thing about being here in 2018 with Hatch Pitch is I'm launching my own new startup, which is a run for Congress. Because if you haven't noticed, things in D.C. are a little broken right now. And who better than entrepreneurs, people who see it as their life's calling to build and fix problems, build teams and fix problems, to just get into our government. So whether you're doing something that is designed for people, designed for profits, designed for the planet, I think you can do something that helps all 3. I hope you keep all those in mind. And for me, Greg, to be here again as one of the alum of Hatch Pitch is very special. But I do have to say, you'll see me all around South by because there's so many events I love going to. And some of them I'll turn into a campaign event, and some will just be an entrepreneur event. But regardless, I want to celebrate the entrepreneurs in the room. Don't give up, but don't be afraid to pivot. Don't give up, but don't be afraid to pivot. But more importantly, keep fixing problems where you see them, whether they're small problems or big problems. Take them on, find the team, build the team, do what you need to do. But again, Greg, thanks so much for having me this morning, and good luck to all the companies, and have a great South by. Take care.
Thanks, thanks so much, Joseph, and all the best of luck to you. All righty, so when Joseph was here, Hatch Pitch was a big pitch competition, hundreds of people in the audience, and judging and all kinds of scary stuff like that. And So what Hatch has done is we've had 70 companies that have come through that process. They've been coached, just like Joseph was, and they've gone through the process and been judged, and they've had winners and finalists and all this kind of stuff. That's a lot of entrepreneurs. What we also have is a heck of a lot of judges and coaches. And what we realized is this community is a group of people who can really be very valuable to each other. So we've kept in touch. We've kept in touch with Joseph. We've kept in touch with all our entrepreneurs. And we realized they still have problems. You know, Hatch didn't solve all their problems on day one. And yet, if you were to apply this community to everybody as they progress through their journey, there's a lot more value to be added. So last year, we changed the format of Hatch Pitch to be a invite-only group of these alumni with our judges, with our mentors. And we invite a few new companies to come and join this group, but the whole idea is that we're here to help each other out now with connections, with conversations, and to be able to move forward in their companies. So we've got 4 new companies today that are going to join this group, and I'll introduce them in a second. The other part that we started experimenting with last year was to actually sit down with this group and have a bit of time at a Hatch Pitch to share problems and share experiences, and that's what we'll do following the 4 pitches. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first presenter, and that is Bryan Menell from Verimos. Bryan, take us away.
Do I have a clicker to advance slides, or is it going to do it for me? Oh, nice.
So we make this up as we go, right?
We just wing it. So my name is Bryan Menell. I'm a technology entrepreneur. I've sold 3 of my companies in the past. I've had 1 company go public, and honestly, Verimos has more potential than all those companies combined. So,
we're from Houston. And
wow, where's that coming from? I heard the voices. Oh, I hear the voices. All right. So I'm pressing the move next button. Let me try the right button. Hey, there we go. So before I start, I just wanted to do a quick poll of the people that are here. How many, just raise your hand if you have ever worn a fitness device on your wrist or have bought a smart watch, maybe gone to the gym, trying to be healthier, ate better food, drink more water, hydrate, maybe meditate or something like. I mean, that's all of us, right? I mean, we all want to live longer, healthier lives, and doing that produces a lot of data out there that just goes nowhere. It really sits in those companies that collect the data. So what we're doing at Verimos is we're trying to take all of this data around your activity, your nutrition, all the things you do in your wellness life, and we want to pull it all together and store it in a special type of database called a blockchain. So the reason for the blockchain is because we can make it private to you. You can actually own your own data and control it, and no one person, company, or organization controls hundreds of computers around the world, right? So it's now decentralized and owned by you. What we do is we give you tokens in exchange for your data, a digital currency similar to Bitcoin. And these tokens represent your interest in the protocol and in the data. As we reach out to industry and find people that find value in the data in aggregate and want to reach out through the protocol to you, we believe that the utility of our tokens will increase. The velocity, as we get other partners that take tokens, will grow. And that will increase the value of our tokens, which the people hold. So we want to build wealth amongst all the people that have a vested interest in our network. So that's the decentralization movement, folks. That's where things are going for everything. So how am I doing in my 3 minutes? I'm usually always trying to hit these spots on
Okay,
time.
so now Bryan is going to have a short conversation. And I forgot to mention, we normally don't have judges, but for the sake of our live stream audience, it's easier for them to see if people are able to use a microphone. So what I've done is I have randomly grabbed from the audience a few of our awesome people that can really give some feedback to the teams. We have Juliana Garezar. She's from Houston Angel Network. We've got Katie Baker from the Kaufman Institute. And we've got Paulo Machado. And he's our healthcare guru. He's been so helpful to our companies, and so we've got a couple of companies today, and so these are our judges. So here's the conversation mainly for you, and then the audience might chime in with some questions as well.
Great.
Great job, Brian. Just curious, what are your thoughts around the business model in this, and how do you monetize it?
Yeah, so us as a company, we're also token holders, so we retain a portion of tokens for us that we will use to help finance the company's growth over time. There are ways actually to monetize through our partners. So we have a batch of partners in the areas of like healthy nutrition that sell prepackaged foods, as well as software, mobile devices. So we can actually monetize through them, but we don't really want to. Our whole mission is to grow the value of the tokens, since we own a bunch as well. So we kind of all have the same incentive, which is growing token value over time. So it's not really, we're not trying to be rent seekers on a bunch of commerce. We're just all trying to grow the values of the tokens because we hold a bunch of them ourselves. Very different business models than traditional things these days.
What's your go-to-market strategy look like?
So we have a consumer mobile app that I have in test flight today, and it'll be available around April 15th. And it taps into Apple Health Kit and does a token exchange like your wallet. It has heavy referral marketing things built into it to refer friends into the system. And also we have partners. We have 10 right now. We have not announced them, but we will in the next like 30 days that make nutritious food that gets dropped to your doorstep, make supplements, have hardware, glucose monitors, all kinds of like things that are partners that have millions of customers. And so our tokens will be like a reward program in essence for them for the things they want to reward. So it's both directly to consumers and then through a bunch of channels to consumers as well too.
So you're a serial entrepreneur. Were you in the same space before? And who else is in your team or advisory board?
Yeah, so always been in technology, but not in the wellness industry. My co-founder has done a lot of work in wellness, and through some just finished a great trial at a previous company of to see how a holistic view of someone's wellness makes a big impact on their lives. In his case, it was with people who had diabetes, and so he has a rich background in wellness. And the other person on our team, on our core team, and he ran my developer program at a previous company. So we worked together since 2012. My other sort of co-founder, I hired in 2011 as my IT director, and he's our chief information security officer. So, and then all my developers I've worked with since 1996. So it's all folks that I've worked with for 12 to 13 years.
Brian, just curious, what are your thoughts around how you integrate with the rest of healthcare? Because we're heading towards value-based care. And creating another data silo is kind of misaligned with where the U.S. is heading for interoperability. Have you given some thought around how you're going to manage that?
Right. So there's really two sides of the same coin. Healthcare is really looking at like critical care when you're sick in the hospital. There's lots of blockchain companies going after patient data, EMR data, all this sort of stuff. We don't. We're looking at the things that keep you out of the hospital, your activity, your nutrition, your sleep, all those sorts of things. So we hope the healthcare system wants to see this data, but I don't really want that data because then we have all sorts of other compliance issues that we don't want.
Maybe I wasn't clear. How do you get your data in? What's your B2B strategy to make sure your data adds value to health and well-being overall?
Right. So for us, people hold their own keys, and because our data is recorded with their public keys, so they hold the keys to let anybody they want to see their data. So if they want to let their doctor see it, it's up to them to permission them. If they want their nutrition company and their fitness coach and their glucose monitor data to all share data, it's up to them to go release them. And cool things actually happen, right? When your nutrition company can see your blood sugar levels or see your workouts, right, then they can all collaborate to make things better for you, right? They can tune their meals to the workouts, to what you do. So, but the permission always lies in the consumer. So we're just big advocates. Like that's first principles for us is privacy and ownership in the consumer of the data.
Okay, so no formal B2B strategy for you.
So for us, we've talked to companies like pharmaceutical companies, right? What they would do is actually go by tokens, make calls into the protocol to reach out to people anonymously through the system, right? So in pharma, they've asked us like, well, could your system find, 200, males aged 26 to 28 who've never taken a statin drug before? And it's like, yeah, that's easy. I can find those for you. So health insurance, they're dying to give you rebates and discounts if you can prove you live a healthy lifestyle. So yeah, there's like a whole bunch of B2B folks that we're talking to that really are interested in this environmental data about people.
Thanks.
And you guys out here.
Yeah, quick. Yeah. Go for it, Roberto.
Let me ask you a question. I think that from a consumer perspective, right, at the end of the day, you're asking me to download an app and trust your company. And I don't understand very well this whole blockchain thing, but I have apps like HealthKit, so I trust Apple. So how do you get me to trust your company? Because you say blockchain and those things, but how do I know that you're trustworthy? Are you going to open source your code? Or why do I trust you and not Apple?
Yeah. So we have a lot of open source code that helps you go to verify all the data on the blockchain. And because we shield this from consumers because consumers don't care about blockchain. They care about privacy, right? And they want to get tokens in exchange for the storing of their data and being in the system. So it's very different. Now there is like a big sort of crypto craze. People are very interested in digital currency right now. So how we message that is going to be really key to people. And then we're a startup, right? So there's definitely some credibility we need to build in terms of our things. But yeah, you can go. We have open source code that you can go look at GitHub that can go verify your data on the blockchain and that it has not been changed or altered over time.
So why should I download your app and trust you with my privacy?
Yeah.
With my private information?
Yeah, only if you want to get the digital tokens for your data and get help in the ecosystem, right? So we can do things through our partners. So let's say people always go through life and things are great, and then one day you go to the doctor, and the doctor gives you the bad news, right? You've got diabetes, you're borderline obesity, you got pre-diabetes, something's going wrong. That's always when someone's looking for help, right? On what can be done. So we can help to make things kind of one button easy through our partners that make nutrition and glucose meters, all sorts of things, to help with the condition. Because if you got diagnosed with diabetes, like you're going to go get a 3 inches of paper like this, and then you're going to go shopping in the grocery store, and you're going to be like doing math for 4 hours trying to figure out what you can eat that won't kill you, right? So we can do things with our app, like make it one touch easy to work with all that ecosystem for you, as well as give you tokens for stuff. So it'll be a challenge for sure.
Okay, so
Functionality, money, or trust.
Yeah.
great. Well, a lot of stuff to talk about.
Thank you guys very much.
We'll talk about it later. Thank you very much,
Cool.
Bryan. All righty. So up next, we have Alex Baqui from Valhalla Healthcare. Alex, are you here? There you are. Let me give you this. Welcome.
Thanks, Greg.
And we'll let you take over with the power thingy.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I want to share with you all a dirty little secret about medicine. Being a doctor isn't about patient care. It's about being a data input person. Studies are showing that now doctors nowadays are spending about half their time on the EHR and doing administrative work, where only a minority of their time is actually face-to-face with patients. And I can tell you something, that's not the calling I signed up for. I signed up to help patients and be there for them, in front of them, and to really engage into that human interaction. And what happens is, okay, never mind. So my team and I, we decided to do something about this over-documentation. My name is Alex Baqui. I'm a physician and co-founder and CEO at Valhalla Healthcare, where my team and I were on a mission to use AI and machine learning to deliver the affordable, accessible, and effective healthcare that everyone deserves. The problem of over-documentation and administrative inefficiency is 18% of all total waste in the healthcare system. And by 2050, this number is rapidly approaching $250 billion. But there's also a human cost behind administrative burdens and documentation. According to the American Medical Association in 2016, EHRs and clerical tasks are the #1 cause of dissatisfaction among the healthcare practice and among physicians by far. Actually, 2-to-1 to second place, which is pre-authorizations. And what happens is when doctors are dissatisfied, it actually leads to real-world consequences. It leads to inappropriate prescriptions of medications when you don't have to, when you can conservatively manage a condition, increased rates of burnout, and then higher rates of malpractice. And unfortunately, when doctors are hurting, it also means that patients are hurting, because you can actually correlate physician dissatisfaction with worsening outcomes in patient chronic conditions, higher costs for our patients, and as well as increased rates of morbidity and mortality. Our solution, our solution for over-documentation is Olivia. She is an AI assistant who automates clinical documentation so doctors can spend less time documenting and more time doctoring. So the first step is patients will actually go to our mobile app, either on the phone or on their computer in the waiting room or at home, however they'd like. And during their first visit, they'll go through several past medical history questions, very standard when you go to your physician for the first time. Based on your past medical history and the chief complaint, she actually tailors a unique line of symptom questioning to fit your presentation. Essentially, it's simulating the clinician's logic of determining what are the pertinent positives and the pertinent negatives that your doctor needs to know in order to figure out, okay, what's the proper and accurate diagnosis that we can create. Finally, the last step is that she'll actually take all that information, convert it into a standardized clinical note, which is pushed into the health record of your doctor's choice or can be sent via encrypted email via a PDF for paper charts. So our goal is before your doctor even steps inside the exam room, about 80% of their clinical notes already complete. It follows the reimbursement standards that are set by private insurance in order for them to get paid, and also gives what we call a patient roadmap, which gives a very detailed idea of where to start. And so that time that is saved, instead of asking clinical interrogation questions, doctors can focus on what really matters to patients and what drives positive outcomes, which is shared decision making on figuring out how are you going to make me feel better, education on exactly what is going wrong, how does everything work, and more time about speaking with them and how to prevent disease, and finally the human touch of the physical exam. Our main differentiator is that we have AI models that really focus and hone in on that specific patient's data set, because we all come with a different data set of our own, and that this is patient-directed and occurs outside of the exam room, meaning that physicians don't have to waste time on the clinical interrogation, can get straight to the point on how are you going to make me feel better. And for our last slide here, we're a B2B2C SaaS model where we actually are targeting primary care initially, and we charge a fee per provider per month, very similar to EHR, the model that EHRs use. Primary care, specifically private practices and group practices, are our go-to. We're 5 months in, and we are already operating in a group of clinics with patients and physicians, and are looking to, right now, in conversations to close our first contract. Thank you.
Great presentation. Can you tell us a little more about your competitors?
Yes. So our competitors, there are several out there. So there are current use case options. So what is going on right now just in the healthcare setting. For example, nurses, residents, scribes, dictation software, and EHR templates all each have their own shortcomings. But in regards to technology competitors, there are, for example, Phreesia, Health Tensor, ListenMD is another one, and Augmetics is another one with the Google Glass. And our main differentiator that we do discuss is twofold. One is that the encounter occurs outside of the exam room, unlike some of these scribing services, Augmetics, ListenMD. And what happens is, it's cool and all that they type up the note, but what happens, the doctor still had to spend the time in the exam room going over and interrogating their patients about these history questions. And if you actually go back to the literature, the data shows that when your doctor spends time or wastes time actually on talking about your history, it's actually correlated with negative or less patient satisfaction. Again, patients want to know, they don't want to repeat what they've had to tell their nurses and everything. They want to know, how are you going to make me feel better? I want to talk to you. I want you to examine me, check me out, and relieve my anxieties. And so, and of course, the more time that we can leave for the physical exam, for talking about the treatment plan, and the less that we can do with the clinical interrogation is the better. That's our main thing. And then the AI models that I mentioned that are not static. Our models are able to actually take your personal own data set and create that symptom line of questioning that's just uniquely tailored to you and your conditions, your family history, even down to your age and your gender.
Thanks, Alex. Great job. I appreciate that you're trying to tackle this massive problem.
Yeah.
Would love to get your thoughts on early feedback from both groups that are involved. Consumers, how do they feel about this being in place? What's the early feedback?
Perfect. No, that's a really good question, actually. So what happens is we have already piloted in December with a kind of more of a qualitative study with a smaller size cohort within the private family medicine clinics that we're currently piloting at more long-term. But for our first pilot, what happens is we wanted to actually get qualitative data, whether or not patients would use our platform, because it doesn't matter how good it is. If patients aren't willing to use it, they don't prefer it over traditional methods, there's no point of getting out there. Luckily, our results were overwhelmingly positive, with about 90% of patients saying that they preferred using our intake process versus the traditional intake process that they encountered in this, their office here and other offices. So, and then also, really good positive comments as well. So that's from the consumer side. For the physician side, the quality of the notes was overwhelmingly positive as well. There are still kind of additional information we're trying to work in. Like, for example, we just added in prompting based on specific chief complaints. Like, say you come in with fatigue or a change of appetite, change of sleep. Those are all alarm systems for, like, say, depression. And so bringing in and prompting in the PHQ-9 form, which provides the screening tool and information. They don't have to go and do that screening or wait on their patient to do it in the waiting room. So what happens, it gets prompted just as a result through our system, triggering that form. The last thing about providers is that in order for them to use it, it has to be integrated into the EHR and into their workflow. That is the single most important reason, according to the AMA as well in their own studies, for physicians to adopt any digital health solutions, is that it must integrate into their workflow. And that, me being a physician as well, I understand that, and that's why we make it and go out of our way to integrate with any EHR or integrate with any workflow, even the absence of an EHR, which is why we even have a paper form. Yes, ma'am.
Can this be used prior to arriving at the primary care physician site? Can they check in ahead of time before they arrive?
Absolutely. And that's really one of our that's what we prefer. But in the beginning, since it's going to be something new, we suspect that patients are just going to forget. But they can do this in the exam room, in the waiting room before they even see their doctor. And it's only 5 to 10 minutes is what we've been calculating out for the entire encounter. So it's not something you're going to sit there and just check boxes, or 12 instead, because they've been tailored to you. And again, that's actually what our pilots have. I'm sorry, there was another question in the audience. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a quick question about data.
Yes.
So I imagine you're going to be collecting a lot of that. So what does that play look like for you in the future?
Awesome question. So, correct. Currently, we have data sets that we go off of that we've pulled actually from the literature. We go directly to the literature since we don't have mounds of data, being a very tiny early stage startup. So that's kind of our go-to foundation. But as we are going to be collecting de-identified data, and what we're going to do with that is actually we will be applying our machine learning model. So my co-founder, our CTO, his expertise is in machine learning. And so what we do want to do is actually, when using that patient data, we're actually able to change the data sets almost in real time. And in addition, be able to consider taking in local data, for example, like epidemics data or allergen levels, because those are also, we have line items within our data sets. We just don't have that data per se yet. And the other thing, as you all may know with machine learning, is that we will identify new trends, new patterns, new symptomology that we never knew of, perhaps, or changes in the correlations even with the current symptoms that we have, to the point that we can actually, if we have enough data about you use our platform enough, even change and tailor data set to you specifically.
We have one more question in the audience.
One more question. Yes.
With your data collection, how does your platform comply with HIPAA standards?
That's a very good question. So HIPAA, me being a physician, we've been trained in HIPAA privacy and security more in the practical setting, but not so much in the kind of the cyber infrastructure. And so that's why I decided, so we have two actually attorneys. One's our general one, but then we have one specifically dedicated to only HIPAA privacy and security compliance. I think it's very important for me when I service my patients that I keep their privacy and security in mind. So anything that we do when it comes to any of the legal forms, our BAAs, our infrastructure, like for example, going with AWS, and then even our transmission and at rest, what are we doing with that data? We're making sure that we check all the boxes, and not just checking all the boxes, but even go above and beyond through the consultation of experts, both in legal, and even one of our advisors who's a former multi-CIO, and he's actually able to as well consult with us in regards to the operations and how exactly in the workplace, in the clinic place, can we maintain patient privacy and security.
That's great. Thank you, everybody. Good round of applause for Alexeis.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you very much. Great, and good shot there. So up next, we have Adero Davis from FairFare. Welcome.
Thank you.
One clicker, microphone.
Hi, how are you this morning? I'm Adero Davis, founder of FairFare, and we are essentially Expedia of rideshares. So we share knowledge like they share the economy, and we have created a platform that allows you to compare the cost and arrival times of the various ride shares in the marketplace. Currently, the problem is that you have a plethora of options. We're from New York, so right now in New York, we have 10 options. No one wants 10 of the same thing on their phone. So we created FairFare as an agent that alleviates the need for you to toggle, use everything in one. You save space on your phone, you save money, and you save time. And we're aiming basically to democratize the space because everybody can eat. So we have created a direct booking agent. So it gets you to your space the same way in which you would use Uber, Lyft, Ride Austin, whatever your choice may be. Into your geolocation, the app pops up, you select what you want, and boom, you're on your way. So it's an aggregate and a direct booking rideshare in and of itself. Currently, like our competitors or things you may have heard of before, have what they call deep linking. And deep linking is an aspect where it takes about 6 or more steps, and you have to have the other apps on your phone. So if you select Uber or Lyft or Ride Austin, it's going to take you away from the app, and you're going to have to download, that app and then re-enter your information. That's really inefficient. And so that's why we created a direct booking agent. Currently, our competitive landscape, we have Migos and Farewell, which are obviously they use deep linking. We don't, and they have an estimate of ETA as well as cost. Ours is accurate, and we have a flat fee of 50 cents for every ride booked via our app, and we provide the choice. We're not partnered with anybody because we want to remain kind of just the objective factor in the whole space. The market opportunity is pretty large right now. It's a $30 billion market, slated to go to $285 billion, according to Goldman Sachs Equity Research Report. And our go-to-market strategy right now is partnering with universities and influencer and a heavy guerrilla marketing campaign. Currently, we're partnering with Columbia University, and we have a pilot running with residents in Marriott in Boston at the end of this month. Currently have about a little over 1,000 downloads, 300 active users, and we, like I said, we started in New York and looking to move to other cities as we go forward. And my board is comprised of the former CMO of Kayak, former Goldman Sachs partner, Global Strategies, an associate for all the legal schmigo, of course, and the COO, Wonder Carpool, myself, and Daryl Harrison, creative director. And that's about it. So, fair.
Great job, Adero. So what prevents your competitors from going from deep linking to direct booking like you are?
What has prevented our competitors from going from deep linking to direct? They haven't been able to get the approval. You do have to ask for the level of access that we have, and for whatever reasons, we have gotten the approval that we need. We're onboarding a couple of more ride shares in New York, Juno and Curb, which is New York City Taxi. So it's a matter of asking and I guess framing your ask correctly. So we were able to do that, and our competitors were not. So.
Great job. Great idea.
Thank you.
Would like to have it myself. I'm just curious, what keeps someone else from asking for those permissions from the other companies that are doing this?
What keeps them from asking for those permissions?
Do you have any IP that's going to block the way you're approaching this, or can anybody else just go ask nicely and they also get access?
Well, they were denied, Migos, and they were former Expedia execs who have started Migos. Farewell is just really about just providing information. They're not monetizing, because you can't really monetize a deep linking aspect. You're not really bringing any value add to the consumer, because you still have to go to that app and download it and use all that. So it's like, why would I pay for that? I'm gonna just use that app. So I'm not sure what prevents them per se. They have asked, they just have not been approved. And they try to use like press, to, change the narrative. But with, the Goliath of Uber is really the main one that is denying their access. They haven't really been able to receive it. I'm not sure. We don't have any kind of like IP or like, patent or anything of that nature around what we asked. It was really just.
Do you know the reason why they were denied?
I'm not sure, because you have to, in terms of the denial, you have to submit a prototype of what you're going to be using it for. So it's a very and they have to be able to utilize it and, try it out, and then they give you your yay or your nay. So I'm not sure if they submitted a decent prototype or what there was, but we did have to submit a prototype before we launched it.
So you
Nice job on your presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
So you talk about wanting to expand. So what's your biggest barrier to growth right now?
Our biggest barrier to growth is people. We have a very big behavior change issue because people are used to using one particular Uber. But, when you're trying to get somewhere and they have the most cars and it's like, well, I'm just going to use Uber and I'll, do something later. I'll not do it on Saturday. My kids, like I'll use my Lyft or something. So it's a behavior change of having people remember to utilize the app. And so it's kind of like hitting them constantly with the information. And obviously that's very expensive because your marketing budget starts to kind of like balloon. And people have to see something 39 times, neuro research is saying, before they remember you because of the onslaught of information that is presented to people on a daily basis. So we are just coming up with very creative ways. That's why we initiated a guerrilla marketing campaign, because that's constantly in your face. You're seeing someone with a t-shirt, they're answering your questions, and in conjunction with like social media, social influencers on campuses of that nature to really just hone it in areas where, especially college students, since they're so insular, I mean, you're stuck with the same people for 4 or 5 years or what have you. That aspect we figure is the most effective way and best use of funds right now. So.
Questions from the audience?
So on your rideshare apps, that's already integrated into your platform?
No, those are the rideshare apps that are currently in the market. There's more. There's a
So
lot more.
how many are actually on your platform?
On our platform, we currently have Uber and Lyft.
Okay, and then so how did you get them to say yes to you? Like, when people who are dedicated, like you said, they have that mentality of, they're so dedicated to Uber or they're so dedicated to Lyft that they usually just use one or the other. If you kind of bring them together, aren't you increasing the competition between kind of these rideshare delivery, services that, at once people can see difference in cost, difference in, timing of arrival, et cetera. So you're kind of increasing the competition for them.
As you said, we're increasing the competition. We're democratizing and commoditizing the space, and that's the entire point. Uber is, essentially, they're killing everybody. So they don't necessarily need us, but their competitors do need it to get more eyes on their platform because no one is downloading their apps at that rate. Uber in New York alone, they're doing 293,000 rides a day. Their next competitor is Lyft. They're at 60,000 rides. So Uber is really kind of like in their own lane with New York City Taxi. New York City Taxi is beating Uber right now, rolling. But in terms of the democratizing, it's like it benefits the smaller players. Uber as well. Uber kicks back money for anybody who signs up. They kind of see the benefit of this because it's free marketing for them, essentially. And it can create a space where you're kind of like, it's like bidding for like the best fares, but that's better for the consumer. Essentially, like you're getting a fair price, which is like fair fare. And they're making money off of it regardless. So,
one question: I'm thinking about the competitive advantage that you could get with this, right? And have you thought about instead of monetizing it like 50 cents or something, almost like put it free and monetizing through a different way, like offering data through to the smaller players based on the data that you could get of traffic patterns or predictive patterns, or even offering information to the smaller drivers or where traffic's going to be, or something where you could get something before the other competitors get access and ask nicely. So when they actually get access to the platforms, you have data and information that blocks them because now you can offer services that they can't because they don't have the treasure trove. Have you ever thought about building competitive advantage like that?
yes, as your question stated, we have thought about building that competitive advantage, and that's currently what we're working on in the back end. So it's 2 models, a B2C and B2B. And like you're saying, that the data that we're collecting, and we're working on an algorithm with one of our advisors, also too, with historical data that New York City has and the various ride shares, to build an algorithm to really actually make it more of a recommender system and not simply just an aggregate. It's our second kind of like revenue in stream that we're playing with and seeing how we can utilize it to make, smarter cities, especially on an international scale where a lot of, international countries are, growing and economies are growing and they're looking for ways to address traffic and that nature. Even in New York City, there's a lot of talk now about, charging people for driving in the city during rush hour. Seeing what works.
Uber and big companies, have you thought about
It's really a lot of fairs globally. So CancerAid provides patients with personalized cancer information and treatment information. Patients can read the information at their own pace, take the information home, and share it with their family. And it's not just cancer information, but also treatment information. Each time surgery, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, or any of the targeted agents get discussed, as clinicians, we can now personalize what side effects are relevant to that particular patient. We also provide a journal. Patients can use the personal journal and record their experiences to share them with their family. We also have a symptom journal allowing patients to record their symptoms, side effects, and their complications. Our third feature is Champions. Champions is something we're very proud of, and we worked on it for about 6 months. Champions allows patients to nominate a support network of personal champions and medical champions. And what they can do is actually share aspects of their CancerAid profile with their champions. So for a family member or friend or a work colleague, they can now keep up to date in real time with their loved one. For a medical champion, like a doctor or a nurse or an allied health team member, they can now monitor the progress of their patients without being face-to-face, which is quite cool. And our last feature is the community. We know that living with cancer can be a very isolating experience for many. So we've developed a newsfeed similar to Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We have patient stories, caregiver stories, motivational quotes, cancer news, cancer research, and cancer tips. This is by far the stickiest feature of our app. Our app is free to patients. We license symptom journal integration to health systems. Customers who sign up receive symptom journal integration directly into their EMR workflow. This means that patients who record their symptoms at home can have a direct feedback loop back to their care team. So doctors, nurses, and other clinicians in the hospital can better manage symptoms and complications through managing medications as well. Why that's very important is that customers like Cedars-Sinai can use our platform to help improve outcomes. Reducing ER visits and 30-day readmissions equates to $19,000 of cost savings per patient per year. It also improves patient satisfaction, which can be worth up to $250,000 of revenue for a health system like Cedars-Sinai. But the best feature, the fact that having a feedback loop back to the care team through randomized evidence can allow patients to live 5 months longer. We're a team of 15 experienced physicians, engineers, and marketing specialists, which have allowed us to raise investment, take our product to market, and sign up early customers. CancerAid is globally recognized. Apple have showcased us as their flagship health app. Last year, Sir Richard Branson awarded us the best global startup. And Steve Wozniak awarded us the best startup creating social impact. We've even dived into a tank with sharks, securing one of the largest deals ever in Shark Tank history. Part of our goals for this year is to sign up more customers. The good thing is, 80 of the top 200 cancer hospitals are already having patients using our platform. Everyone here can help today. We'd love to hear your advice and feedback. And if you know anyone at any of these institutions, we'd love to talk to you. Thank you.
Great presentation and congratulations on your awards. So how long is your sales cycle? Because onboarding all these big hospitals and EMRs might take some time, right?
Yep. So you're right. So average health startups selling to a health system is 12 to 18 months. We believe we've shortened that to about 6. The good thing is we've already got patients using our app at these hospitals. So when we speak to them, that due diligence period of a patient using the platform is shortened. So, but it's certainly something that we have to address.
Great job. Love the app. Love to hear your thoughts around the claims that you're making. When you mentioned that you're talking about improving people living longer, help me understand how that unfolds.
Yeah. So it was out of a study that came out of ASCO, the largest cancer conference in the world last year. It was the first randomized controlled trial which showed a digital tool having a survival advantage.
So in this study, it came out of MSK. They had 2 arms of patients. One arm had standard care and follow-up. The other arm had standard care and follow-up, plus patients would use an iPad, enter in their symptoms prior to them seeing their doctor or nurse. What was incredible is that the patients who used the iPad, that group, ended up living 5.5 months longer. Now that tool isn't commercially available, so the hard part is actually integrating into the EMR workflow for the doctor or nurse. So we're the first cancer app to actually integrate into Epic. So why that's very important is we've had that same symptom journal in our app for 3 years. We just never had evidence like that to prove it. So part of those outcomes that I showed you was based on that study, but it was groundbreaking for us, and we're really happy it came out.
Okay, 1,000 questions.
Well, you guys can have
Okay, you go.
Quick question about just your retention. It's kind of an odd question, I suppose. But I'm curious, like, once people are in remission, do they stay connected to the app, still active? That kind of they're using it while they're going through therapy and then they're done? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so we have patients from all sorts of different aspects of their journey. So even patients who are in survivorship can benefit from our platform. Cancer just doesn't stop when you finish treatment. As you know, it can continue on. So where we find, I guess, the most benefit is through the community. So patients who have gone through that journey still like to connect with others, still like hearing positive emotive stories. But the biggest bang for the buck is patients on treatment, because it can relate to those 3 outcomes which I described.
So, yeah, just Net Promoter Scores. Have you done any analysis on what the feedback has been at the consumer as well as provider level?
Yeah, so we do a lot of analytics on app usage and retention. Every kind of behavior in the app we capture. The stickiest feature is the community, obviously. For us, I guess, stickiness retention is very important. If you think of the average medical app has 20% retention after 1 day and 7%, at 4 weeks. Our retention, at 1 week is about 90%. So we believe we've created an app that's very sticky amongst users, and it's owed in part to the community itself. So it's certainly something that we have to keep improving on and iterating, but this year that's part of the product redesign.
How do the providers feel about it?
We have a lot of clinicians already using the app. When you show a clinician some of those outcomes that came out of that ASCO study, it's quite easy to get on board. The reason why I guess we've had a lot of success is we've had patients already adopting our app before providers come into it. So when they see patients using it, then they can have it adopted, I guess, in the institution itself. For example, Cedars-Sinai.
Cool.
Hey, we've got a live stream question, so we're going to let Vishaka ask that.
So Paige Heller on the live stream is asking, what is the cost to acquire a customer for y'all?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think for us, I think it would be between 50,000 to 100,000 right now. The sales cycles are quite long, obviously. So I think for us, we want to shorten that and reduce that cost, obviously, yeah.
Hey, Nik. So the good thing that about CancerAid, it just benefits so many communities. We talked about hospitals. You talked about patients. Talk about how the pharmas can benefit as well from CancerAid data.
Yeah, so CMS actually announced the oncology care model last year, which is $6 billion of funding for addressing the administration's goals of healthier living, better outcomes, and lowering costs. So they've outlined what they call 30 change tactics that they want to improve cancer care coordination. So pharmaceutical companies, providers, and payers all participate in the scheme, and they're eligible for this funding. The good thing is that CancerAid right now in its current form addresses 14 of the 30 change tactics. So we believe we're very well placed for a pharmaceutical company engaging with us. But certainly where we see the long-term benefit is the data we're collecting. So we're collecting a lot of great demographic data, environmental data, and treatment outcome data, which a lot of these large corporates and players in the pharma space aren't able to capture. So for example, the Flatiron deal that came out with Roche acquiring them, they don't actually have that missing jigsaw puzzle piece, which is patient-reported outcomes. That's where we come in, we feel.
One last question.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the champions side? Because I think that's one of the key differentiators to the outcome of the treatment. And what happens when you find anybody that doesn't have the network to have
that functionality, unfortunately, but where we see the community growing is actually becoming a place where patients can connect with others going through similar experiences. So for patients having chemotherapy, they can connect with someone else who's already on that treatment and discuss their side effects. If someone gets recommended surgery, they can talk to someone else who's already had that operation. Making that more dynamic is something that we are looking to do this year. But right now it's a static news feed. But certainly we'd like to partner with groups like Imam and Angels that do a lot of the matchmaking with a patient and a champion. We won't reproduce that. We'll probably just partner with some of the not-for-profits doing that.
Great. Well, thank you, Nik. That was CancerAid. Well done. All righty. Okay, now all these companies signed up today not because they wanted to win a pitch competition. So I mentioned earlier, we don't do the competition thing anymore. We're basically here to help. So these people have all signed up, along with about 5, maybe 10 other teams that are here as semi-finalists who are in the room, and they're here to learn something, to get some mentoring, to learn from peers and from, of course, our great mentors and judges. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Juliana, to Katie, to Paulo for being on the hook at the very last minute there to give us that feedback and be on camera. So if you give a round of applause to them. Thanks so much. So now we're going to revert to everybody in the room is part of the participants, all right? We're going to basically do what these teams have signed up for. We're going to break out into some sessions, and they're going to essentially be led by a group of leaders. We'll tell you the details in a moment, but what these are is you can self-select around the tables, and you can help each other out. Some of our teams have gone on to become mentors and judges and investors, and so they've got some experience that they can share. Many of our judges actually have become founders, and in fact they can learn from everybody. So this is all way too complicated to deal with other than around a table. So we're going to do that. We're going to get around a table, and we're just going to basically split up into these groups. Now, one of our tables for the first time this year is going to be live interactive through YouTube, and that table is going to be able to take questions and deal with Q&A and everything through our channels. You're going to remind me again, it's people can ask questions on Twitter, and they can ask in the actual chat on YouTube for that. So we're experimenting with this stuff. Who knows, it might work, it might not. We'll find out by looking at the video later. So I'm going to bring on Sharon Wallace, who actually knows how this whole system works and who the leads for the tables are. And can I hand it over to you, Sharon?
Yeah. And we're still missing Grace, I think.
We'll have to.
So do we either want to have a backup for that table or skip that table?
Skip.
Okay, so we have a group of tables here, and here we go. And for each of these, we're going to spend about 30 minutes in a discussion of the topic. In a moment, I'll have each of these folks raise their hand so that you can select into which discussion group you want to join. We'll spend about 20, 30 minutes in that discussion, and then we'll wrap. And our table leaders, you'll have a facilitator designated for each table who'll be leading the discussion, and they'll read out for a minute or two sort of the key findings or ahas that came up. And we had some really interesting, lively discussions last year that came up. So, let's see, do we have Grace here yet? Okay, so I think we're gonna skip this first one, the design thinking. Oh, she is outside. Excellent. Okay, so. And I'll go through this twice, so you can just think about this. So design thinking is one topic, which will be led by Grace. Health tech will be led by Paulo here. Roberto is going to be leading the customer growth table. Juliana is going to be leading the funding table. John Davis, John back here. IP and business formation. And Paul, there he is going to be leading the live stream table. So and you've already gathered some people for that, but definitely we'd like, the whole idea is that this is an ongoing community. So please do get engaged. It's not really a spectator sport so much as dive in. Think about what brought you here, what questions you have, and do. It's kind of a peer mentoring, I think is what we call it. What's that? Okay. So once again, Grace, is she in yet? No, Grace?
Who wants to lead a design team?
Okay, hang on just 1 second. No.
Design thinking. Sorry about that.
Okay, so now, so Paulo's at Health Tech back here. Juliana back here.
Right in the back.
Funding. John Davis, IP and Business Formation, back here at this table. And Paul, where is the live stream table set up? Right here. Okay, right here. Great, okay. And we'll call you back in, we'll probably give you a 2-minute warning and then call you back in about 20, 30 minutes.
I'm just milestone made, so I'm independent.
Take a seat anywhere here. We've got a table mic, so we don't have to worry about like passing the mic around and everything.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Should we sit on this end one too?
Yeah.
Why don't you take this one? I'll take the other.
You know, took off some of my logos here. I don't look like a NASCAR driver.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Store my hatch credentials are down here. Someone's bringing us water, and then when that's done, we'll get started. I think it's the same guy who's feeding me live stream questions. So I emailed it all preview, but the TLDR is just some, actually, I'll intro them once we get started, but the just some core things of like first couple of hires, common mistakes new leaders make. You've been doing every job yourself because you're the only founder, or your co-founders are, and like you really suck at delegating because you just haven't been doing it for a couple of years, right? That type of thing. Role transitions, decision debt, stuff like that. Cool. So, going in the water. Double check if the stream is. Levels are good.
Adam.
Okay, how you doing?
Good to meet you, Kate. So Kate, our camera up here, and Ben at the end. Good to meet you. I'm Adam. Hey, Adam, how are you?
Hello, Kim. Lovely to meet you.
Hi.
Kate.
Hi, Kate. Nice to meet you.
If we put the table mic kind of on the between
There's so much background noise in here. It's really interesting.
So we're almost good. We're gonna move this way, and y'all three will pick up here, and I'll have a mic. I'll hand the mic up to you to talk. Okay. A little more ambient noise. No. Off. I think everyone's got the water they need already. Water, anyone? Good. Back up. Nope. Okay.
So what do you do?
I'm a digital strategist working with companies either using or developing emerging tech.
Okay.
I'm particularly focused on blockchain, so I'm kind of the queen of blockchain at the moment in the north part of the UK, which is
exciting.
And I thought I need to keep up, and I popped out of the little tunnel of learning and realised I was actually at the top of the pile, which was a great feeling.
I'm still trying to. I hear about it. I just came from HIMSS. And that was.
I have talked to a few people about who've been to HIMSS.
Yeah, and it was just the top of mind. It was the topic of the conference.
I think it's going to have a very big impact on healthcare, in terms of the data.
We definitely need to talk.
I'm excited about it for healthcare, particularly.
Right.
I'm already speaking to. Obviously, we've got National Health Service trusts in the UK. I'm already speaking to the directors of one of the trusts about
what do you do?
At the moment, I freelance. I had a software company which was a Hatch Pitch finalist through 2015, and we sold that in 2016. So I've spent the last couple of years just doing consultancy, really. But I've just approached for a business dating at the moment.
That's exciting too.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
A lot of balls in the air. It sounds.
A lot of balls in the air, yeah. But they are specifically looking to expand in the blockchain space.
Yeah.
They have they've put their money where their mouth is. They really start with a 101.
Yeah,
it's refreshing.
Right. That's a nice thing.
Wonderful.
That's a nice thing.
Yeah. So,
All right,
so that's really exciting.
We're ready to get started here.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah. Hey, Hatchstream. Hey, Internet. So I'm going to let everyone say about 30 seconds, introduce themselves, past entrepreneurial background, what you're up to currently, and then we'll get into some awesome questions about team building and leadership.
I'm Ben Dyer. I am based in Atlanta. I founded Peachtree Software a very long time ago, the first accounting software for the original microcomputer, which became the PC. And I've done a number of other startups since then. I've done several things lately in the biomedical space, but I'm currently running TechSquare Labs, an incubator and venture fund in Atlanta, Georgia. We invest in and house very early stage companies, mostly commercializing technology out of Georgia Tech.
Hi, I'm Kim Bond Evans, CEO of Cerimity and co-founder of Cerimity. This is my fourth startup. So I've really had a lot of practice at building small teams that have to scale quickly. I'm a Microsoft alumni, a BMC alumni, so managed teams and built teams at big companies as well as small companies. So I definitely have a lot to say on this topic.
I'm Kate Bourcherel. I have a background in accounting and in technology, so I have worked my way through CFO roles in companies that are scaling from, say, 9 employees up to 50, and businesses from startup to FTSE 100. In the last few years, I had a software business which was a finalist here at the Hatch Pitch a few years ago.
Table mic's not working out well enough. Okay.
So I was a finalist in the Hatch Pitch here a few years ago with the software company that we sold 2 years ago. And I work with businesses who are using or developing emerging technology, and specifically now who are starting to scale in the blockchain space.
My name is Adam Wolf. I started my entrepreneur career with a web calendar-based startup that launched a little bit before Google Calendar. We ended up selling that company to Jive Software, where I stayed for a number of years as they grew from about 40 employees when I was acquired to about 400 when they were close to their IPO. I've worked in a bunch of startups since then and launched a bunch of different products. But I'm mostly focused on that very first stage, the bootstrap stage and early growth right after that.
Cool, and so that's what I want to talk about at this session. So there's going to be 1,000 different points here at South by that are really at the, just founding, you just incorporated, or you don't even know what that is, like those very, very early stages. But, getting to your first product market fit, getting your first customer and learning a whole bunch from that one customer that you have. Those conversations have value, but I really do want to focus on what Adam was just getting at, which is that first moment. You've achieved some traction, you've achieved some growth, maybe you even got a hire or two coming in, and you're growing the team, and then things start to shift very rapidly under your feet now that it's not just you as a founder or you and some co-founders. I think it was summarized best by a quote I heard that sort of turned me on to this as an entire area of different booby traps for different entrepreneurs. Was someone said at some point you have to stop building a great product and start building a great team that will build a great product. And so that was sort of the thesis behind this line of inquiry. So the first one that really comes to mind is decision debt. So you're used to making all the decisions really easy. It's all within your head. You hire maybe one person, maybe a co-founder, and you make decisions by telling them what to do. But eventually, or very soon, people are needing to come to you or think they can't do anything until they come to you. And you think you've successfully delegated. You think you feel like you had a conversation where you thought you empowered them, and they're still waiting on you for every other decision. Have you experienced that? Do you have any thoughts on that, about knowledge transfer, just empowering people, that type of thing? Sure.
Okay, yeah. I've definitely seen this, and that it's that shift between being within a culture where everybody is aimed at the same goal, which is to get that business off the ground, and they're dedicated to the business. And then when you start having the employee relationship, they have a different set of motivations. So the key is very early on, the communication has to be well thought out and well documented, because you're dealing with different motivations, and if you don't recognize that your employees are not motivated in the same way as you to push the business forward and to think of the business rather than themselves, then you have a disconnect.
It's very important if you delegate something to somebody, you have to trust the decisions they make and not second guess them. If you fall into a practice of second guessing what everybody's doing and kind of micromanage them, then you effectively not delegated anything, and you've not relieved yourself of that burden. So it takes a lot of effort to let go enough to trust somebody and allow them to do things differently than the way you would do them, and things you might disagree with, but ultimately might have a very good outcome. So that would be my major point, is to really delegate properly.
So I would say for me, my sweet spot is I'm a fixer and I'm a builder, and those two endeavors really require a certain skill type, a certain personality type. You really have to have self-starters. You have to have philosophical alignment on the mission, and I would say founding teams have to be that. Founding teams have to be self-starters. They have to really know what to do, crystal clear on the outcome, where we're philosophically aligned, and then let them go.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said. I think one analogy I like to use is trying to decide where you're looking. When it's just you have to look at your own feet and you're making very small steps and very purposeful steps, and you're planning exactly where you're going to step next, because that precision matters at the very smallest scale. And as you bring team members on, you need to raise your gaze up and start telling people, okay, we're going to this turn, we're going to that fork in the road, we're going to take the left. And as you get bigger and bigger, you can start talking about, we're going to go to that mountain in the distance, we're going to go to that mountain in the distance, and you can start leading with very broad strategy. And so the mistake that I see is either raising your gaze too high too early, where you start pointing to mountains, but no one knows how to communicate and how to walk together. And the opposite mistake is keeping your gaze too low and telling everyone exactly where their foot needs to be to just run with that.
Are the founder, and you're the ones putting together these strategic partnerships, you're landing the whale type customers. That is your calling, and that's very difficult ever to pass down the line to achieve the same success that you might have doing it yourself. So I'm still doing that.
Yeah, I'm either in one of two states. I'm a really good delegator. I like to delegate everything. And when I'm not delegating, then it's really a problem situation where the outcome is falling short. And I tend to take over. I have to be very honest, in that area I am still evolving, because again, in this very highly charged, fast-paced starting or fixing something, you just don't have a whole lot of runway. Starters and these experts, because get it done. And if I have to take over, there's a problem, and I'm going to make a tweak there. But I love to delegate. I love to give it to people who can really take it in ways that I hadn't even imagined a problem can be solved.
For me, the hardest part about delegating is not that the person is taking tasks away from me or describing what that task is, but it's that the information they gain in doing that task and in completing that task, I don't see anymore. So a lot of the decisions I would make would be because I knew what customer service problems were, what acquisition problems were, what product problems were, what development problems were, and all of those mix in my mind for my next decision. And as I start delegating, I end up having less and less information in my own mind and to make those decisions with. And so that's the kind of the hardest part for me. I think delegating is realizing I can't know everything anymore.
What he said. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, we've got a question coming in from the live stream about what do you do, what are the important factors in sort of tough times when, you've started to grow and then, you hired some folks predicated on a certain amount of growth medicine coming in or what have you. Just what are the factors involved in team motivation when everything is not going perfect or according to plan? Go for it.
I think in every startup that I've been involved in or have been around or have invested in, the types of personalities and skill sets that are right at the beginning of a startup are not necessarily the ones that are right 6 months down the road or a year down the road or certainly 2 years down the road. So you're inevitably going to have to go through some change and turmoil, and it's always very difficult and never easy to make those kinds of decisions. But the talent sets are just different at every little different stage of a startup process, I think, and that requires very careful attention on your part to make sure your mix of talents is correct for the exact stage you're in at any given time.
Yeah, I'm going to say that is so true. I couldn't agree with you more. You start going after certain objectives and outcomes, and startups are very fluid. Things change, especially depending on the industry you're in. They can, change in a couple of quarters. So I think what I have found is to really just keep the communication going. You have to really have a consistent, continuous one-on-ones with your teams. It's really interesting. I'm curious if the other panelists have observed this. I have. Generally, people know when they don't fit anymore. They always know that it's like, okay, it started out great, but based on the shift in the business or the pivot, it's just not working for me. So they're not really feeling it. And I think it's the leadership's, the CEOs and founders' responsibility to just really deal with that head on and have a discussion. You know, is there a different role that they can be in? Assess that, or if not, have a really amicable separation. Because when you have a tight team like that, when you have someone who's really not working out or dissatisfied, disgruntled, it can really poison the well, and it has to be addressed immediately.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I've observed it. So the fit for a business at its very earliest stage is not necessarily the same fit when, as you say, it scales or it pivots. And you will have casualties along the way whose skills are better used in other places. And certainly having that communication, but two-way communication, understanding the position of everybody within the team, and being able to manage the feedback loop and to take action on it quickly before it causes a problem with the business.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I thought about when this question came up was the external problems that can affect your company. And there are a lot of things that are uncontrollable, not just the goals you set internally and the sales goals and the sales targets, but the market might change and slide out from under you. And so you've raised some money, you've hired expecting a really big push, and the market shifts, and all of a sudden you're overstaffed and you need to make a cut in staff. That sucks for everybody. The thing that I've seen in that situation is keeping the communication open the entire time, keeping expectations open the entire time, so people know, here's what our sales goals are, here's what we actually need to hit, here's what changed in the market. We have to make hard decisions. And the most important thing is to make those decisions decisively and once, and then after you've done it once, you can rebuild your team with the new market or the new problem or whatever it is that you're overcoming. But a big mistake is to make lots of little cuts in the company instead of just one big, hard decision and then moving forward after that.
Sounds good. We got another, it's interesting coming right out of the questions, what you guys are saying, the live stream's asking some questions about sort of this type of alignment that we've been talking about, right? Making sure the team is aligned on the same goals, making sure that everyone understands. Paige Heller asked one from the stream. There's all these tools to help team communication, and there's 500 project management tools. There's all these communication things, and in the end, half the time you set one up, you tell the team where everyone's going to use this, going to organize our thoughts, we're going to have alignment, like the tool's going to do it for you, and then it falls off. So, how do you keep communications going? Obviously, tools are not actually the answer, but what is? How do you keep the communication alignment going as the company is good times in just any?
Reverse the order this time?
Yeah, go for it.
Every company is different, and so I think that's okay. There's never going to be a one-size-fits-all. I think it's important to decide what information you want to kind of prioritize and create process around, and which kinds of information it's okay to just let the employees do whatever they want. If it's Slack, if it's anything else, that's totally fine. But this kind of information needs to go in this wiki, or needs to go in this document, or needs to go in this. So there's one point of capital T truth in the company, and everyone knows how to organize around that. And then everything at the fringes can be a free-for-all, in my opinion, anyway.
I think having a range of communication and collaboration tools is important, because I've been involved in a business where everything was done by Slack, and it became too daunting. I've been involved in businesses where they say, we're not going to use a community tool because we don't want, as you say, we don't want anybody on the fringes having conversation. So there has to be a balance struck between different methods of communication. The single source of truth is important for to maintain the journey of the business, so that you have that you know that the goals are clear and that people can access them, but that you have to also build that community within the organization. And if people choose to do it on Slack or on Facebook or whatever, be a little bit hands off. Allow that community to grow, because that will help the retention within the company as well.
So there are certain things that I totally turn over to the team. I really let them weigh in on how they want to communicate with each other. They can decide to have, we usually want to pick a broad channel where that's company-wide. Then the engineering and marketing may want to have their own communication to, like you said, dial back the noise. So that is something I completely leave up to the teams to decide, and that is a democratized decision. What is most challenging to me from a communication standpoint is the transparency issue. How much do you need to communicate with the team and striking the right balance of being informative versus distracting? So that's something that I spend a lot of time on, and to me that's situational, it's cultural, making that decision. But I think every leadership, every startup team has to strike that balance, because that is the difference between, I think, success and failure.
I think on the whole right now we have too many nifty communications tools to use in our companies. I personally am on 7 different Slacks. I'm on some advisory boards where I'm on their Slacks, and we're using Google Docs, using email, we're using text messages and Dropbox, and after a while it becomes very difficult to go back and figure out where some file came from, or where it went, or what your last thought in a particular thread was. And I don't have a handy answer for that. I did see a presentation at the South by Accelerator yesterday, a British company that is building a giant plumbing system that makes all of these things talk to each other, so you just have one entry point and you can communicate through all channels. I have no idea if that will work or not, but it was a noble idea at least. But I almost think it's harder now to do things than it was before we had so much technology help, and there's nothing better than good old FaceTime and tracking things individually.
That's interesting to hear you say that. One of the things that's been asked is about just the mechanics of capturing knowledge from different parts of an organization. I know that, like, at my company, one of the things that sort of we want to have as a value that even if you're a customer success or account manager or someone in marketing and you have an interaction with a customer, we don't want that, and you learn from that, or you see there's some problem, we don't want that to be lost. We want it to be captured somewhere and then eventually be something we put on a roadmap and be addressed if that's where the contribute to the company direction. So just what's the mechanics of capturing customer feedback as a team grows and it's no longer the founders in every single sales talk? I mean, Ben, it seems like you want them to be there anyway, but I'm just curious, like, capturing knowledge of customer needs, deciding on which ones are valid, and getting that actually from customer interaction and need to ship product delivered solution. Really the mechanics of it, less like you got to do it, you should watch your metrics, but like really like who talks to who, how does that work?
Well, I guess that's the problem I was getting at. We got everybody talking to everybody now. It's a many-to-many type conversation when everybody's got so many different tools, and just organizing it so that if you do want to have a common bucket that tracks your customer feedback, where do you put that? You have too many choices out there, and so that requires a lot of careful thought and careful management, I think. And as I said, I'm sort of longing for a more simplistic time when you could actually keep track of things without trying to remember which of the 45 tools they are coming through.
I'm going to, for that, you're really talking about how do you make sure you don't have any valuable information from customers falling through the cracks. Yeah, I mean, just really letting people know this is how this is how you communicate with us, and making sure that sales frontline people know it's their responsibility to bring that back. Making sure you have an open community. You make sure you communicate to your customer community. Here's how you communicate with us. That's pretty straightforward on how we do it.
My only observation, because it's not something I've had that much involvement with, is that in a software development context, the agile system of actually sitting down and meeting and talking and exchanging knowledge, and everyone knowing where they are on a very regular basis, it can be applied to any aspect of business. But it is right back down to communication, feedback loop, everyone knowing where they're going.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the agile system where you have consistent communication and kind of scheduled communication. I think that's important. Most of the projects I've been on have been software as well, where a lot of those ideas early on end up just getting captured as bugs or feature requests or enhancements directly in the engineering queue, and then the product team each cycle kind of triages those. But that bug queue, whether it's Pivotal Tracker or GitHub or whatever it is, that issue tracker ends up being the source of customer feedback until it grows much larger and there can be bigger processes. But that lasts, I think, a surprisingly long time.
One thing we haven't talked about thread is what this looks like from the customer side too. I mean, we're talking about how we handle it on the inside, but having just repatriated myself from Austin after 7 great years here to Atlanta, and having had to move car tags and change my season football tickets to another university. I mean, all the major stuff like that. I've spent hundreds of hours on call trees and all kinds of different interfaces, and some stuff's online and some stuff's not. So bottom line, we need to make it really easy for our customers to talk to us in a way they find convenient, and that will prompt them to be honest.
Well, thank you all so much. I think you've shared some amazing wealth of knowledge with everyone out there on the stream. So what Hatch is doing next, they're going to have the rest of the people, the sort of the ambient background noise here, they're all going to take what they've learned at their tables, and they're going to pass around to Mike and announce some of the big learnings from theirs, and we'll come back and share what I think are some of the major takeaways here that you guys have shared. Thank you so much again. And yeah.
right, now we're going to have the report out, and all the table leaders get up here. You spend about a minute, 1 or 2 minutes, talking about the top couple of ahas or key findings that your group came up with. So, Paul, would you like to go first?
Sure, even though if you're watching the stream, you just finished watching us talk about this, but to share with everyone else who's here at Hatch physically, we were talking about team leadership, team building things. General thrust of it being just after the moment of transition and just after hit ramen profitability, we want to be profitable. And so the philosophical alignment, the importance of that, make sure that is a thing we discussed was having philosophical alignment makes it more likely that when you are delegating, you can truly trust that the person that you're delegating to is going to do that. The difficulties or the challenges as being a leader and learning to delegate was that you're used to just having all the info in your head, and when you're delegating things, you don't get every single data point anymore, and you may find yourself suddenly at a loss of, I used to know every detail of what's going on. Now I have to kind of make decisions and delegate based on less information than I'm used to. So just bringing that up as a pitfall, something we've discussed for a while. And additionally, that different team members, different amounts of talent, people have a fit for a different stage of a company. So, when someone who's very good in the first, 6 months, a year, year and a half at a startup may find as the company grows and the team size changes and the focus changes, or if there's a pivot that they don't fit as well. And people tend to know when they don't fit. That was one of the big takeaways. And to avoid letting those people linger, either as a CEO or another co-founder who's leading a team, to avoid someone lingering and poisoning the well in a situation where there's just not a fit anymore. And the last big takeaway that we had was, it's not that there's almost too much communication now. We talked a lot about the plethora of there's Google Drive, and if you're in the Atlassian universe, you've got all their suite of tools, and there's Slack, and everyone's in 80 different Slack channels these days, or Slack organizations. And just that there's so much communication that you really need to get as a leader into the role of finding how things are captured, how things are communicated, what categories of information get captured where and how, so that you do tighten up the feedback loop with your customers, and that when a rank and file customer success person learns of a need, or a salesperson learns of a need, that it gets back on the plate of the people who are going to end up building it and then verifying that it's being used and getting it back out to the customers, delivering that and resolving their needs.
Okay.
That sounds
Thanks,
really
Paul.
cool.
Roberto?
So in the customer growth table, we went through 3 startups, 3 cases, and I think that we had very interesting conversations. We first talked about really how customers can be a source of value for your company. And in this case, with the first startup, they were one of their biggest assets. The growth in their customer base was really tied to the value of their company. So how removing the friction and how increasing the rate at which they could acquire customers could really drive the value of that company. So how could they, instead of putting barriers or trying to charge customers and monetizing it, how could they really find alternative ways to find monetization or revenue streams to accelerate that value, accelerate that growth was one. And at the same time, to use that to create competitive advantages. So the importance of customers as a source of value for your company and considering them as an asset. The second company, we talked about the importance of being very clear about your value proposition. And I'm a big proponent of whenever you have different personas, different customers that you're talking to in your company, you need to really identify who they are and what's in it for them, what is the value proposition, and what's the benefit that they get out of it. So in this case, being clear about what you're providing them and why would they become your customers, it's key. And it needs to be something that's very simple to understand. And we're so enthused by all the benefits that we have and all the characteristics of our platform and our solution, that we forget that our customers are very busy people who only have 5-10 seconds to consider offering, and their rationale for becoming our customers sometimes needs to be really simple. It's like, why exactly is this for me, and why would I do this in like 5 seconds? And So clarifying that value to these personas, very important. And then for the third company, we talked, it was very interesting, about how sometimes transforming some of the low-tech businesses can be with some of the highest data science and AI and analytics available. In this case, for example, transporting food can be seen something which is low-tech, as transporting trucks and putting things in there. But how the real business there is to understand through a plethora of analytics, how to best position the truck in the right corner at the right time when the weather is right. And your competitive differentiation really stems from the understanding that you have based on thousands of parameters and based on a number of factors of that environment. And the current advances that you have in terms of data allow you to do that. So how do you use in machine learning, in AI, on big data to transform even low-tech businesses into really advanced companies? To understand your customers better.
Thanks, Roberto. Now I have Juliana.
So in my table, I was also very lucky to have a Mercury Fund representative. That's always very nice. So a little bit about companies that are funding. We had 4 companies looking for funding. The common theme is that they were too early for angel investing and VC. So basically one of the key things is how to get them investment ready and the different avenues. So for some of them it was a little clearer than others because some of the companies that were there were innovating in the intersection of different sectors. One of them specifically was health, STEM plus fitness. And how you identify key investors or at least key mentors to get you investment ready when actually the sector you're in is kind of an innovation. So we went through different possibilities. Of course, many of the funds and angel networks have mentoring and office hours to help these companies that might not be ready yet get there. A lot of pitch competitions, accelerator programs that are geared towards specific sectors, some of them even internationally. We talked about Techstars Paris in one of them. So that's one of the key things, what to do when you're not ready for investment yet and the kind of traction that different funds and different VCs need. I think another theme that also was there was for one of the companies specifically, they already got some, the first round almost filled out, but they were looking for their seed round. And there were many of the key potential investors were asking for a lead and how to identify that lead. I think it's not only a difficult thing, but also the lead sends a signal to the other followers. So we talked about how to do due diligence on those leads. Not only the investors have to do due diligence on the companies, but also the companies have to do due diligence on the lead. And how these leads for seed funds and seed series unlock the potential for the follow-on round. So how you really need to do a lot of searching and really see how you can get synergies going there for unlocking potential for the follow-on rounds. And the last but not least, most of our entrepreneurs in our tables were part of minorities and women specific companies. So of course, trying to identify those funds out there who invest specifically in minority and women-owned. I am part of one fund called Portfolio that is basically helping women invest and unlocking that potential because there's a lot of women there who can invest but don't know how to yet. So we're trying to break that gap. And I know, of course, that the Capital Factory has put a special prize on minorities and investing. And I know that Group Race got that prize. So congratulations, by the way. But I think, there's many of ways that, these companies now have more VCs and have more angels that are interested in investing in them. So trying to basically open that network for them. So that's it.
Thank you, Juliana. Paulo.
We had a great conversation around how healthcare is a little more challenging than the average direct-to-consumer market. There's a lot of stakeholders, and you have to think about all of those stakeholders and whatever you're bringing to market. how it affects all of the various stakeholders, because the user experience is not just the end user, it's also all the intermediaries in the middle, and there's a tremendous amount of infrastructure in place that exists. So whenever you build a solution, you have to think about how it affects not just the life flow or the experience of the end user, but the experience of all the intermediary stakeholders, what type of systems exist, and then what is your strategy to integrate into the intermediaries' experience, so to speak. Because if you don't delight the providers, so to speak, even if you delight the consumers, at the end of the day, you're going to have a very hard challenge, because those providers can easily dismiss what's happening at the consumer level and push their own approach in. There's a tremendous interesting array of organizations, perspectives that are coming in and thinking through deliberately all of these intermediaries and where they sit in the marketplace and how you go after them, so that you can either try to replace them if that's possible, but in most instances they're pretty deeply embedded organizations that exist, and what's your strategy to integrate with them so that you're basically getting their support, your applications pulled through into the marketplace, because it's a feature set that they have not developed. But that is also a big challenge, right? Because these big organizations that exist today, on their product strategy, that at some point in time your specific applet, so to speak, your specific solution may be something they have in the distant future. So how do you become the preferred partner to be integrated in and think about all these evolving standards? And of course, the other challenge is to keep in mind healthcare has a lot of policy and regulations and things in the background that you have to keep an eye on. So how do you think about creating evidence, because we are heading towards value-based care, and there's it's easy to build apps. It's really hard to build evidence-based apps that show true value. Because now that physicians are in the business of healthcare in a different way, and they're going to be coming at risk, does your solution actually help them not just from delivering value, but also fixing their operational challenges and issues through this kind of difficult transformation process? So it's critical kind of do a deep dive in all these different segments, right? The organization level, the provider level, the consumer level, and figure out how your solution fits on top of the incredibly complex geometry, developing the product and iterating, getting feedback from all those layers simultaneously. And it goes back to what one of the organizations said, that the sell cycles are very long and the product cycles are very complicated because of all of these variables in healthcare. Because at the end of the day, healthcare is not a normal good. It's what I think of as a negative good. You just can't build it, people necessarily come. You have to actually figure out how does it fit into the ecosystem and have value.
Great, thanks, fella. Okay, now John will tell us about the last table.
I'm the last one, so I'll go quickly. My name's John Davis. I'm an attorney in Houston at Carney McWilliams and Davis. We also have offices in Denver, and I'm the business IP attorney guy. So most of the quick conversations I had at the table had to do with early, or at least early prioritization and protection of their intellectual property, identifying key assets like patentable material, or in my case, a lot of brand names. I think a lot of companies start off early and they don't really think about getting ahead of like a provisional patent on the trademark side, to use trademark to protect their brand in the App Store, so they can actually start getting their website up. We have a lot of clients that go through a lot of accelerators and incubators, and once they finally get live and they start to get their first real traction, and then they file their first actual in-commerce trademark, they get a cease and desist from a very large company that says, I'm sorry, but you are maybe even remotely encroaching upon our space. And then the business owner has to make a very as to whether or not it's worth it to fight with Humana or American Express or Match.com or Facebook or other people out there that have software algorithms that are monitoring their intellectual property. And even if there's just a 1% chance that you're confusing or infringing upon their stuff, you should expect to get the cease and desist. So we like to be proactive. We work with to start early on, to do their trademark filings, to get their entities set up, and to get them to have some legitimacy on the back end. I think it also is something that when you're pitching to your investors and you're doing your confidential kind of discussions and your NDA protected sort of diligence talks, having that intellectual property package showing that you have your filings not only on the patent side, but also with trademarks or even decently comprehensive trade secret protection agreements, non-disclosure and confidentiality agreements, showing that you have these things as part of your back end makes you look a lot more valuable. Whether you are or not, it's your business, what your product is will depend that, but you'll look a lot scarier and a lot more investable because you have your documents in order. So something to think about. Very early and very fast. That's it.
Thanks, John. Thanks to all our breakout leaders. So we're running a little bit behind, but I do want to bring on somebody who has really been our partner in being able to even put on this event. This is the second year running. As I mentioned earlier, we're capital factory entrepreneurship in Austin and pretty much in Texas. And here's somebody who's, as I say, not only our partner, but has an amazing vision for entrepreneurship in Texas. And I want to bring Josh Baer up, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about that vision. Awesome. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Greg.
having us, Josh. And thank you for your vision.
Thanks for having me. You're going to get the Texas Manifesto speed pitch. But thanks, Greg. We're really glad to have you here at Capital Factory again. And we love partnering with you, and happy to have all of you here during South by Southwest. And so I'm going to talk about the vision for the Texas Startup Manifesto, which is really about connecting together these 4 incredible cities in Texas. There are 4 of the 11 largest cities in the country, 4 of the 11 largest startup hubs in the country, and all together making the best state in the country for startups and for Texas. So Texas is totally kicking ass, in case you hadn't noticed. Pretty much everywhere you measure it, Texas is at the top of the list. The Kauffman Foundation regularly ranks it number 1, number 2 startup state, and that's because they've got 4, like I said, the 11 top startups: Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. And the trend is going up. They're moving up the list, not moving down the list. And Austin, 11th largest city in the country, one of the fastest growing for many, many years. We've got UT Austin and South by Southwest that we're all here for. Apple's 2nd largest headquarters, lots of other companies based here. Dallas is the 9th largest city, UTD, lots of companies based there. And the fourth largest city in the country, one of the most diverse, Texas Medical Center, Rice, and obviously all the oil and gas business that's there, and a great partner Station Houston, and then Alice and TMC, the Houston Angel Network, lots of other great things in Houston. And then San Antonio, 7th largest city in the country, big military city, big security city, with Alexeis and Geekdom and USAA there as well. And so we've got all that together, the 10th largest economy in the world. The governor here at South by Southwest likes to remind everybody of that and pointed out that that means we are bigger than Russia and that he is more powerful than Putin. And we've got 50 Fortune 500 companies here, mostly in Houston and Dallas. And so some of the recent success stories here: HomeAway, Indeed, WP Engine just last month raised $250 million from Silver Lake. That's going to be a great win for Austin and for Texas. And the future of Texas is more of that. We're going to have more people moving here, more startups, more big companies choosing to be here. Maybe Amazon. We got 2 of the top finalists from headquarters, outside of Texas, and more money coming into Texas, and hopefully more money within Texas flowing around. And with that, I think that Texas can take on anybody. We can take on any other city, any other country, any other place in the world. And so the big message out of this for me is everybody looks at funding and they like to complain about funding. They're like, we wish we had more money, we need more money, we wish more money, California had more money. Funding, I believe, is the trailing indicator, not the leading indicator. The leading indicator is talent. And the talent is where people live and where they move. And the people have been moving to Texas for a long time, and we're going to see that continue to happen. And that's why so many companies are moving here. And I'm confident that with all the great companies that are starting here and more companies that are moving here, we're just going to see the investment dollars continue to grow. And the other big part of the manifesto is that we already have a lot of money here in Texas. It just doesn't go into tech and startups. There's a lot of oil and gas money and traditional real estate money. And by connecting all these cities together, I think we can get all of that flowing a lot better. And so we found some great local partners to work with. We started out working with the DEC in Dallas and Station Houston in Houston and Geekdom in San Antonio. And moving people around, we're connecting them together online through a platform called Union, which lets everybody in each community see all the other people and connect to mentors and resources in those, and also connects us into other startup hubs all over the world. And so, and then physically, we're actually moving people around. We have our staff on Von Lane buses going back and forth all the time, and a local service called Rise. We charter a bus to the deck and literally connect people together in person. And when we do, lots of people show up, and it's been a really great ride going around the state. And then we just announced that in May we're going to be opening up our second Capital Factory location in Dallas in partnership with the DEC at this amazing new building in Uptown that just had a $25 million renovation. That great energy and that great network up to Dallas. So that's what I got. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All righty. Okay, now I was going to give you guys a wrap up and tell you a little bit more about Hatch Pitch. But we've got something much more exciting. Our most recent company from 2016, who just got acquired by Bosch, and one of the founders is here, so instead of you listening to me for a minute, you're going to listen to Yale Zhang. And Yale, come up here and tell us about that experience, please.
Today because because Joe Kopser always wears a blazer when he comes up and gives a talk. I'm not going to wear a baseball cap though, so going to be half like him. I also don't have a Texas Twain. But so I only got 2 minutes, so I want to talk about the 3 takeaways that we got from Hatch and also startups in general. Number 1, social media. If we weren't for our social media team, our brand, then we wouldn't actually have known about Hatch Pitch because they actually reached out to us through Twitter to ask us to apply. And we actually, so then we participated here in 2016. We got 2nd place, kind of like RideScout did. But then, okay, we got acquired. So it's not trying to follow their exact footsteps, but it seems kind of like what a coincidence there. So that's number 1. Number 2, it's a term that we actually came up with in-house called competition surfing, which is that don't let Hatch Pitch be your only competition that you participate in. Try to apply to as many of these as you can, because this is where you get a lot of great advice, great mentors. Actually, through coming to Hatch Pitch, we actually made an investment to come to Austin for a year to discover the market, to talk to CTAN. They didn't invest, but we did get a lot of connections. We also got a lot of great advisors from the area now. And the 3rd thing is travel. Don't be afraid to go outside. So what I'm saying about that is I was in Atlanta. The founder and CEO, Anya, she was living in New York. We actually went to Detroit for the Techstars Mobility Accelerator program. And after that, we came to Austin. We actually were we actually went to a bunch of other cities. Now we have locations in Los Angeles that we just announced today. We have an office back in London, and we have an office in Stuttgart, Germany, because of the recent acquisition by Bosch. And all of this came about really because of one thing, which is that you have to really go where the market is. So you have to go where the talent is, you have to go where the market is, you have to go where the money is. And if they're all in different places, you have to go all those different places to round up everything, round up all the resources you need. You can't just stay in one place. So just don't be afraid to be a nomad. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. And they are now international, pretty much. So I've got one last thing to say. There's a team of about 10 at least, maybe I can't count, awesome people who put Hatch Pitch on. I just kind of stand around and make comments and make life hard for them. These are the guys that actually put it on. Iggy in the corner there has been doing us for years. Josh Weibling over there, probably the reason why we have this event at all at this stage. Sarah Gutierrez, she orchestrated all this and got all the pieces moving. And then there's a bunch of other people that have kept us going. Thank you guys so much. And with that, we can go and enjoy next door, or we can hang around here for another 45 minutes or so. But we can go grab some food in the Capital Factory VIP Lounge, which I don't know if you guys realize, but you all earned a VIP badge to Capital Factory by showing up today. Thank you all, and catch you later.